saying that anger should be channeled, does that make anger in and of itself a problem? No, right? So because it can be channeled in positive ways and it can be channeled into negative ways. And not just that, there are things that Ghazali said that you should have and you should show anger over. And he classified those into two general categories. What were they? Necessary and unnecessary. So what were some of the things that were necessary that he felt like if an individual doesn't even have anger over these, then he has a lack of liya, or he has a lack of jealousy, and he has a lot of apathy. Because you shouldn't be apathetic either. You should have, right there, there are things that should stir your feelings. There are things that should make you angry and make you want to protect them. And how did he define the things that were necessary?
Injustices.
Not injustices per se, but that is a part of it. But he summarized them into things that were necessary for life. Right? So things that were necessary for life. The things you're talking about for injustices are these are the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually prohibited. Right? So the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited, those things should also make us angry. Right? The things that make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala angry should also make us angry, and they should make us upset. But us, from like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, does he have needs? No, Allah Azza wa Jalla is above needs. But we do. So taking away our food, taking away our clothing, taking away our shelter, these are things that we should always look to protect. So if we're looking to protect these things, these are also things that cross over in what we call al-daruriyat, right? Things that are necessary for life. And this is why you'll have a number of scholars who give different fatwa or give religious rulings on how come these things we take extra steps to protect, even though it is a possibility that we fall into. What? Darura, where does it apply? I'm sorry? So darura is the exception. These are the needs, right? Yeah. So where did darura apply? Alright, when there's harm, or if there's something that's, even if there's something haram, in the darura, what happens in that situation? In a necessity case, what happens? Alright, it becomes halal. So here he says that, okay, what if you are in a situation where you're just unable to control your anger? Right, this individual, it's like he has a seething anger, he's unable to control it. Ghazali, he actually proposes that the reason for this is spite. He said the reason that this type of anger, because anger can be compartmentalized, right? There's different types of anger we have. There's no such thing as just like general anger. There is anger, and there is always going to be a reason for that anger. And the reason he mentions is because of spite. Spite is usually what? So how do you guys understand spite? Or you don't understand it? Huh?
You do it to get to them.
Right, to get to? All right, so usually it's toward? It's usually toward another. Right? Spite is usually toward another. And you're basically what you want to do is you want that person to be what? You want that person to be hurt in some way, shape, or form. So what is spite? He says with the heart is filled and is heavy with hatred and is constant. So like, every time this person, you interact with them, every time you look at them, deal with them, what happens internally? Or you get angry, like you get enraged, you have this issue, you have this problem that comes forward. So here, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, belief and spite do not gather in the heart of the believer. Why so harsh when it comes to spite? Right, spite really hardens the heart. It really hardens the heart. And not just that, the moment I start acting on my spite toward another, what usually happens? Is all of the hurt that is expressed toward this person, is it usually limited to that person? No. So there are there's a lot of collateral damage when we channel our spite, when we get angry at something. I don't care what happens to the people around it. So even if there are people around that person, then I'm still willing to hurt that. And I'm going to talk about some case studies and some examples of where that happens and where it especially happens. The first one is jealousy. He said that despite one of the reasons that it happens is because of jealousy. He says here that what is jealousy? Jealousy is basically if I see someone who has something good, I want to what? I want to remove it from that person, or I want to hurt that individual. The other level of it is that I actually rejoice at other people's misery. So when this individual is upset, when this individual is sad, I take happiness, I take solace every time that person is hurt. It causes one to abandon, turn away, and cut off others, even if they request return to it. And this happens, like, I've seen this in a number of, like, especially relations, is where a person will come and they'll try to talk to their uncle, or they'll try to talk to their aunt, or they'll try to talk to their cousin, and that person, what are they doing? They're just totally dismissing them. They're not even talking to them. They're totally, leaving them on. And he also says here, turn away from them to humiliate and bitter them. So not only do you not engage, right, another level of this is that you can actually, the way you turn away from the person is actually a way to belittle them and a way to make them feel small. He also says that these are actually the characteristics of a man. These are actually the characteristics of somebody who's a hypocrite, when they take joy in other people's pain. He says you start to speak about this person in an impermissible way. Some examples he gives are you lie about this person, you backbite this person, you'll expose this person for things that they were trying to keep hidden. He also says here that you will start to ridicule, you'll actually start to belittle them. You'll start physically abusing this person. And then this is something that happens. Because why do bullies hurt other people? Right, they themselves have some kind of, what does that hurt? That hurt is usually this spite, right? This pain and this rage that they have in their heart. They try to channel it and use it to hurt others. Also, to prevent him from his rights. So if this person, for example, he has family ties, he'll prevent him from meeting that person. Where does this happen a lot?
Children.
It happens with children. Where? In divorce issues. So in divorce issues, what happens is like, and the thing is, like, a lot of us will complain about the divorce system here, and it is problematic. There's no doubt about that. But what happens is that because one person, it's skewed and it's biased toward one person, the other person, what happens to him?
He gets screwed.
Right, he gets hurt. Right, he gets hurt. So at the end of the day, regardless of how a husband and wife interact or fight or have problems with each other, what happens? They many times will be able to manage it. But who gets hurt? The kids are the ones that get hurt. Because if one parent who has full custody, they're constantly feeding their kids, and they're telling them your mother's like this, or your father's like this. It's why are they doing it? They're not doing it because they necessarily feel that he or she is bad. They just want to do something to hurt them. And what happens? When I start teaching my kids that one of the parents is bad, what happens to my relationship with those kids? Does it get better? Right? It actually weakens. Because, like, okay, every time you talk to me, or every time you need something from me, what happens? Right? You keep talking to me about someone else. Like, you never ask me about me. You never talk to me about me or my problems or my issues or the issues that I'm facing. You just keep talking to me about what happened to you, how you feel, and how bad this person is. And when I spend time with that person, he is not actually what? He's not actually what you're saying. He's actually, he doesn't do any of those things to me. And it creates this rift in the hearts. But why do ex-husbands do this, or why do ex-wives do this? They do it out of spite. Also, returning a debt. Just because I don't like someone, and that person has borrowed money from me, I will make an extra effort not to get the money back to that person. Why? Again, it's out of spite. I mean, and look at, are any of these things good? Like, all of these things are extremely problematic. All of these things, they cause a huge issue. And the root of them is this hatred. So, dealing with spite. Imam Farhan mentions a few things. He says, well, you should try to avoid the 8 characteristics that we spoke about previously. He also said you should limit oneself in terms of spite, meaning that, okay, even if the spite is there, that you shouldn't channel it in a way where you're actually trying to hurt the other person, or you're doing something that is haram or impermissible. It's something, even if we manage to limit like these 8 things, it's something that still weighs heavy on the heart. He also says that unable to prevent your heart from hating him to the point where you prevent yourself from meeting him. Like, meaning that I cut off, I hate him, so if I know he's going to be there, what am I going to do? I'm going to avoid meeting him or avoid confronting him. I'll avoid smiling at him. I'll avoid any softness toward him. I'll avoid helping him if I know that he needs any help or he has any problems or issues. I'll avoid sitting with him to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'll avoid trying to benefit from him or with him. I'll leave off making dua for him. I'll leave off praising him. Like, all these are extremely problematic things. And he said this is the lowest form of spite. He said just not doing those things is actually the lowest form of spite. Meaning what? There's still, right, there's still hatred in my heart. And there's still spite in my heart that I have to work on removing and getting rid of. So, and he said that just avoiding these things, it actually still lowers your rank and station in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he said, even with that, he said, it'll prevent you from reward. So you managed to avoid being punished, but you also prevented yourself from being rewarded. So did you really benefit? Just because you avoided those things, did you essentially or really benefit from what you were trying to do and what you were trying to accomplish? So he mentions the narration, I think, of Abu Bakr. So when Abu Bakr, he vowed not to provide for Mistah. Mistah was one of his relatives. He used to give him a regular stipend. But when the situation of Ifk happened, when they accused Aisha radiallahu anha of committing zina, one of those people who actually accused her was Mistah. Mistah was a companion. He was Abu Bakr's cousin. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He revealed, He says, وَلَا يَأْتِ لِأُولِي الْفَضْلِ مِنْكُمْ وَالسَّعَةِ إِنْ يُؤْتُوا أُولِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْمَسَاكِينَ وَالْمُهَاجِرِينَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَلِيَعْفُوا وَلِيَصْفَحُوا أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَنْ يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. It says here, those who have been graced with bounty and plenty should not swear that they will no longer give to kinsmen or those who emigrated in Allah's way. Let them pardon and forgive. Do you not wish that Allah should forgive you? And then Abu Bakr, he says, absolutely. He said, I want to be forgiven. I want to be from those people that were forgiven. And he restarted his stipend. And in some narrations, not only did he restart his stipend, he gave more than he. So before this all happened, he used to give him something. And then after the situation with Aisha happened, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this. Not only did he give him his stipend back, but he actually increased the amount that he used to give him. And this is the Maqam Siddiqi. Right? This is the station, and this is why he was Abu Bakr. Right? This is why he was who he was. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him that status. This is why he gave him that position. This is why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, were I to take a khalif, were I to take a close friend, it would have been Abu Bakr. Lakin, اتخذني الله وخليل. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took me as a close friend. It would have been enough for him to stop. Right? So had he stopped, did he have the right to stop? Absolutely. Right? He had full right to do that. But here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling him it's better to fight your ego. It's better to fight your nafs. It's better to fight off these feelings and not oblige shaitan. Don't give it to the shaitan. We should always work to try to better ourselves. We should always try to work to improve. Because here, it's not about the relationship I have with this person. It's about what? My relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? That should always be the goal. And that is essentially what taqwa is. When we talk about taqwa and this awareness and building this relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to make sure that we're always channeling in that way. Question? What's the limit? What's the limit? And we'll talk about that. And like I said, this is the station of the Siddiqi. So these individuals who have the highest status in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is how they are. Right? This is how they deal, this is how they are. And these individuals are all obviously and always seeking to cover over nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as for what is the one who's the object of spite? So if I'm the one who's actually receiving the spite, right? So that we were always talking about the person who had this spite, they're the one who is receiving it. What should he do? And this goes back to your question. He has three choices. To give the one fighting you his rights and duties. Meaning what?
So,
I just deal with him? How? If he gives me salam, what do? I give him salam. Right? If I borrowed money from him, I should what? I should give him his money back. But am I making any extra effort? No. Meaning that I am just giving him his rights and what he is due. I'm dealing with him as a Muslim, but I'm not taking what? I'm not taking extra steps. The second, to be kind and forgive. Where I actually forgive him of whatever it might be, and however, and whatever means he's dealing with me. And lastly, I can oppress him. The opportunity, right? Somebody's oppressing me, and I can actually oppress him. So, Imam Al-Ghazali, he says that this is the position of the righteous. The first one. He says the mu'min, he acts like this. He just deals with it, and he gives him his rights. And over here, number two, what do you think? What position or what maqam is this? The Siddiq. So over here, he says, this is the Siddiq. And over here, number three.
Adversarial.
He calls them the lowly people. He said only lowly people do this. So over here, what can you do? You just give this person nothing. You don't have to take any extra steps, and as long as you do that. Without what? So this goes back to the initial discussion. What am I trying to do? What is going on in my heart? In these, at least the first two. Forget the last one. But at least the first two situations, what should be going on in my heart?
You're trying to dissipate the hatred.
Right, I'm trying to remove that hatred from my heart. Why? Because this hatred is actually something that hangs heavy. Right? It's something that actually drags me down. It prevents me. And what is it preventing me from? Okay, happiness. But what is happiness? That's a valid question. Happy husband, happy life, right?
It's my relationship with Allah.
It affects my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet ﷺ, he talks about the opposite, the one who is light-hearted. He said, يَدْخُلُ الْجَنَّةَ أَقْوَامٌ أَفْئِدَتُهُمْ كَأَفْئِدَةِ الْفُجُرِ. He said that there will be a group of people that enter paradise and their hearts are as light as birds. The Hadith is Muslim. And this, what does that tell us? A light-hearted person, why is this person described as light-hearted? Or as light as a bird? What is the lightness in his heart? He doesn't have what? But he doesn't have spite. He doesn't have this anger. He doesn't have this hatred. He doesn't have this jealousy. Right? All of these negative characteristics he doesn't carry with him. And when he does anger, he angers why? He angers for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we look at the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in most of his interactions, like was he what? You know what I mean? Like was he an angry person? No, he was not. He was a very, very pleasant human being. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Like people enjoyed, like they literally enjoyed being around him. When they heard that he was somewhere, they would go and try to be with him and just to be in his presence. Like this is what a happy demeanor does. This is what a light demeanor does. It should make us more approachable. It should make us more pleasant. It should make us more understandable. This is part of being prophetic. If we want to talk about the khuluq of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if we want to talk about his interactions and his dealings, even his wives and his children, did they fear him or did they respect him? If they respected, they didn't listen to him out of fear. They listened to him out of respect and love. And this is how we should be. How do you do that? By being positive, by being upright, by being empowering. This is how we all should be. I know we fall short a lot, but at least we have an example in front of us. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So over here, this is the end of the chapter, but I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about this idea of spite. And this idea of this heaviness that we have in our heart, and actual means and ways of dealing with this. Because Ghazali was very good about talking about the vices and the problems with it, but he didn't talk about clear strategies on how we should manage it. And he doesn't do this on purpose. But he's talked about a lot of these strategies before. And many times he doesn't feel the need to repeat them. So now this is your test. On what are some strategies that we should implement in order to help us deal with our spite and our anger? What do you guys remember? I know you guys like being lectured too. Let me hear something. Huh? Silence? Silence? Man samat al-najah. Man samat al-najah. Whoever silent is successful.
Walk away from any potential conflict.
Okay, walking away from conflict, I think that's very good, for sure. But the question now comes here, like those are individual instances. I'm talking about spite because spite is a characteristic that kind of stays with you, right? It's not something that is not like so. Anger can come and go, right? Anger can come and go. The problem with spite is something that weighs heavy on our heart, and it basically gives somebody else free rent in our head, right? Because we're constantly thinking about that person. Hey, how do I deal with that? I'm constantly thinking about someone. Or that person is like, I'm constantly focused on that person. What should I do? So these are spiritual remedies.
Yeah.
Right, we have spiritual remedies like reciting Quran. Or what else can I do? Making azkar. Right, making dhikr, making istighfar. These are all spiritual remedies, yes.
It sounds like anxiety, see a therapist.
Alright, see a therapist. Okay, but seeing a therapist might help. So the therapist is good. The therapist is good and the therapist is bad. I think a therapist is good because it's one of those few spaces where people are willing to be vulnerable and actually talk about what their problems are. I have one problem with therapists. What do you guys think of this?
Therapist like
Well, I mean, that can be a problem, but many times they're very understanding. Like, you know what I mean? Because their job is to listen. So they can be very understanding if I tell them, well, in my religion I can't do this, or in my religion I can't do that.
Depending on the therapist, there's such a... What I've seen is that there are therapists who will enable, like, the feeling and the behaviors.
Yeah.
Like, and it'll oftentimes be the person that's, like, claiming to be the most self-aware.
Yeah. And I do have that problem. And I do see that. And again, I haven't done enough surveys of therapists, but...
And this is like in the Muslim community and outside?
Outside, no. I'm saying from some of the ones that I've actually interacted with, I feel like there's a lot of, what's the word, like a confirmation bias or like... I'm sorry, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just like this unconditional reinforcement of everything that I'm doing. And it's like, you know what I mean? It's like just someone who's clapping along for you. And that is a problem. Because the job of, and I understand the therapists, are they motivated to get rid of the person who's giving therapy to them? No, they're not. They're actually, there's more financial motivation than what? Right, keeping a repeat customer, right? The best customer is the one you already have, right? Yeah, I don't know if you guys know that. But, the best customer is the one you already have, meaning that it's easier to upsell the customer you've already sold to versus marketing to try to bring a new customer.
Acquiring new customer.
Yeah, acquiring new customer. Yeah. And the thing is, like, building that relationship and kind of getting that confirmation, like time and time again, that reinforcement, is it going to help me grow as a person? No. So what I'm trying to say is that if you find a therapist and you don't feel that therapist is actually giving you that challenge, then you need to kind of do introspect and figure out, like, hey, listen, I feel like I'm a coward. Because in these interactions I do this, what skills do I need to help me get over that? Or every time somebody talks to me, I feel like I create an emotional wall. How do I keep that wall down to make sure that I'm communicating properly? Right, but that requires self-awareness, right? The therapist isn't necessarily going to help with that, depending on the therapist. But the self-awareness is something that is universal. And I think that's something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he time and time reinforces with us that we really need to work on. You know, in the nashid today, that during the night the words are sharper and they penetrate deeper. Why? Because there are less distractions. Right? I don't have to worry about work, I don't have to worry about my family. Even it's quiet outside. Even right now, it's not that late, right? But it's quiet. And if I'm sitting alone, it really gives me time to be alone. And it gives me time to look in that mirror and figure out what my shortcomings are. But it definitely is a good strategy, right? Because at least it'll put me in one space where I'm willing to be vulnerable, right? And I think that's a great step. But now I have to take other steps to recognize what my faults are. Yes, ma'am.
The Qur'an or concept, if they don't have base on the Quran and the Hadith, it will not help the person.
There are other strategies that don't require, not everything requires the Quran and Sunnah, right? So what do I mean by that? So in math, I'm not going to be like, okay, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say about math? Or even in counseling, are there things that will help me? Yes, absolutely. But those are more spiritual remedies. So like the things like the sister mentioned, like saying istighfar, reading Quran, making dua, all of these things are very good spiritual remedies, but sometimes I need practical ones to be like, okay, hey, right, why are you saying this? Or where did this come from? You don't always have that type of engagement from the Quran and Sunnah. The Quran and Sunnah are important, there's no doubt. But we have to understand that there's a mental health aspect that's there, and there's a physical health aspect that's there too. And just like I'm going to go to an imam or sheikh or whoever it is for spiritual solutions, there are certain people I need to go for mental health solutions as well. Like when I get sick, I'm like, okay, let me see what the Prophet sometimes said about this. Tibbut Nabawi, that's another. I have a problem with that whole thing. But that's
big problem.
That's just me. But
not just you, personally.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Not to say that there aren't things that are water, like Zamzam, there's no doubt that it's blessed and that we should take barakah from it. The Quran is blessed, we should take barakah from it. Allah's names, these are things that we should take barakah from, there's no doubt.
Yeah, but if you need heart surgery.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're realistic things. Like, if I break my leg, I'm not going to be cool. I can, maybe to help you with my pain, but at the same time, I have to go see a doctor to set the bone again. Yeah. You guys still, Spike, help me. Yes, what is it?
Distractions at least. Go to more physical work.
Okay. Sure. So this is actually a great strategy. Here, if I'm in a mental rut, right? If I'm in a mental rut and I'm just in one place, focused mentally, what is the best way for me to get out of that mental space? Or speaking can help. Speaking can help.
You should speak with someone you trust.
Sure.
Family member, friend.
Sure. And I think that's a good strategy. What else can I do? If I'm in this mental rut and I'm focused, what can I do?
Exercise.
Exercise. Right, exercise. And what does exercise mean? Right, like I gotta go hit the gym for like an hour and a half. Just walk, right? And the reason I say that is because many times when I'm in a mental rut, getting myself mentally started is very challenging, it's very difficult, right? But in order to help me jumpstart, one of the best ways to do that, and it can just be like a 3-minute walk. Like just very honestly, just like I need to set up and I need to change my location, I need to get up. And we have this from the Prophet ﷺ. He said, when you're angry, what should I do? Sit down. If I'm sitting down, I should lay down. Right? So you have this this physical motion. It has an effect on our it has an effect on our emotions, and it has an effect on our outgate, and it does help distract us. Hey, what else? Writing. Right, writing. Right. This is actually it helps me analyze because some people are very visual. Like if I actually look at what I'm feeling, what can I do? Question. So if I write it down, there's ways for me to analyze it. What else can I do? I'm sorry? Okay, you can talk to the person who you're feeling angry toward. Absolutely. If in what though? Like in what situation should I do that? Right. If I'm going with the intention of sulh, right? If I'm actually going with the intention of reconciliation, if I'm going with the intention to hurt this person, then no, you don't want to do that. It's like, yeah, I'm going to show him. Right? No, you don't want to ever be in that situation. But if it's actually to do sulh and you want to do some reconciliation, then absolutely, that's great. Anyone else? Praying. Absolutely. Prayers is important. It's very important. Huh? Picking up a hobby. So all of these things, you guys are bringing a lot of distractions, which I think is good. But you can tackle the issue. I think those are good. So what is a distraction is good? The distraction is good when I'm at the peak of my anger, right? Like, kind of remove it to like kind of cool it down. Like, but what if I'm at a state now where I'm mentally aware? What should I do then? Right? I really need to understand where the spike is coming from. I need to do that paradigm shift. Like, why am I actually angry at the person? And sometimes if we actually analyze many of those situations, it's going to be between husband and wife, it could be within the family, it could be between friends. And many times, many times, I will realize that the reason I'm angry is stupid. It's really a silly reason. It's a very childish reason. Practicing empathy. What is this person going through? And many times, even those situations of why am I angry at this person, you know what will it really boil down to? We had spoken about this before too. Expectations. And expectations are things that we create mentally. And if I didn't tell this person, is it fair that they didn't fulfill whatever it was that I was asking them? Right, but many times it'll be, that's where it'll be from. Why didn't he invite me to his daughter's wedding? We've been friends for 20 years. But again, why? Because these are expectations that I have. When it could have been so much easier and be like, hey, listen, your daughter's getting married, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I'm really happy for you. I kind of feel upset that you didn't invite me. Then what does that do for the person? Well, not just that, not just that they know. Right, they can explain it. You're giving them an opportunity. Right, you're giving them an opportunity. You might not like the reason. Right, it might be like, man, listen, it's just really meant for family, and my daughter's the one that made the list. You could override your daughter. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so we might not like the reasons, but at least now we've given an opportunity to what? To explain. And you have to take that first step. So having that paradigm shift, and I think like a lot of these things, when despite, it just comes from those expectations that we have. And it's really upsetting. The expectations we should always work on lowering. We shouldn't expect things from other people. My expectation should always be with what?
Hello.
With Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because He's actually the one who's able to fulfill them. Can people really fulfill expectations? Like, very honestly. Like, we're all weak. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says He created us weak. And if we recognize our own weaknesses, why is it fair that we expect other things from other people? We should, and if we lower our expectations, you know what it helps us in our relationships, it helps us become more appreciative when people do things for us. Right? If I expect my wife to cook dinner every day, and one day she doesn't, how am I going to feel? I'm going to get upset. SubhanAllah. And this is the opposite of how Allah deals with us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, Inna al-hasanat yudhibna sayyi'at. He says that good deeds wipe away bad deeds. But with us, one bad deed, what does it do? It wipes away all the things. So like, she's cooked dinner for me for 70,000 times, and like the one time she didn't do it, like, is that fair? And this is, subhanAllah, and it's amazing how Allah, He deals with us as a whole, right? Like as a whole being. He doesn't deal with us based on instances. He looks at our entire track record, and this is how He deals with us. And even then, He throws in more mercy. But we're very petty. Like human beings, we're very petty people. You know, this is how we are. And in order to help lower that, we need to lower that aura. It doesn't mean we don't keep our standards high. That's important, right? Like we have to maintain standards. It's something that's fundamental. But standards, where are they maintained? With myself. Those are the standards I have. Expectations from others, it shouldn't happen. And it'll make me thankful, and it can make me more encouraging. And we'll find many times, and unfortunately, that the root of spite is that it really comes from that. Yes?
Just saying expectation, right? You cannot adjust other person's expectation. You can adjust yours, basically.
No,
expectations high.
You can, so expectations can be adjusted, but my thing is like, always try to keep expectations as low as possible. And here, let me give an example. The Prophet ﷺ, when he asked Barira, he said, tell me something bad about Aisha. And Barira was her servant. So she was like, well, you know, when she's kneading bread, sometimes she falls asleep. And she sleeps so deeply that mice will come and nibble on the dough while she's sleeping. This is a show of her innocence, number one. But it also shows how demanding was the Prophet ﷺ. He used to mend his own clothes, he used to take care of his own home. You know what I mean? Like, and not to say that his wives didn't have a role. Obviously, we have to understand, even in a marriage is very complementary. Right? It's sometimes like if the husband is falling short, the wife will step up. If the wife is falling short, the husband will step up. Right? It's a complementary relationship. But saying that, like, these are things that if we keep low expectations and we keep, why do husbands keep working every day? Why? Why don't they just stop?
Support the house.
But why do they support the house? Like what is driving a man to support his house?
Not be homeless.
Huh? He doesn't want to be homeless? Some men will live in their car. Like, you know what I mean? For some men it's not a big deal. Like, you know, a lot of times they'll buy the big house or they'll get the big space. But well, why are they getting such a space? Why are they purchasing such a Huh? It's for the family. And not just that, my proof is the moment they move into the house, how much control does the man have over the decoration?
Not in the regular.
And very honestly, they shouldn't. Because if a man is out and working, does it make sense for him to decorate a space that he's not in all the time? Versus somebody who's there most of the time. But again, it's a complimentary. What are the things that's pushing? Because he's doing it out of love. When he doesn't want to go to work that day, what is pushing him to go to work? Because he loves his family. And the same thing. She's tired, and if she's a home wife, like she's a stay-at-home wife, why is she doing the laundry? For what? Because she loves her husband. But if the husband is coming home, and he puts on the clothes, he's like, mashallah. Just that small appreciation, how much motivation does it give? Or a wife going up to her husband and be like, listen, I know you're tired, you don't really like your job, but you're going every day, I really appreciate that. How much will that fill his heart? Yeah, these small things. And why do we do that? Because when we keep low expectations, we can be more thankful toward our spouses. We can be more thankful toward our children. We can be more thankful toward each other as friends, as compatriots, as colleagues. And someone might say, okay, well, what about work? No, that's an agreement, right? But work is a written agreement. You can't say, like, if I agree to work 40 hours and I'm going to do X, Y, Z job, and somebody doesn't mop the floor when his job is to mop the floor, I can't be like, oh no, I shouldn't expect him to mop. No, that's an agreement. That's a very different scenario, a different situation. I'm just talking about these relationships here. So now let's find out what I do with Sophie. Any questions? No? Alright, so next week, inshallah, Wednesday, and then after that, we'll be shifting to Thursdays, inshallah.
Is
Yes.
the time frame or the day of Imam Siddiqi's class and the particular day?
That's when he's back.
Okay.
And he's Jazakallah khairan wa subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him. He's driving about 45 minutes. He was. He just moved from there.
Who's that?
Sheikh Suhaib.
Oh.
Yes.
I have a question on Monday's class that I wasn't able to
Ah,
have.
sure.
So you mentioned that there's like critiques of some of
Imam Muslims. So,
yes, it's like 12.
yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of overlap between Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim.
Mhm.
Were any of the 12 that were critiqued also found in that
In Bukhari? So, no, not that I'm aware of. I think they're unique to Muslim. And there are a number of hadith that are actually unique to Muslim. Yeah, so not that I'm aware of. And I did make a mistake that nobody caught in the class. I said that, and I'll repeat this again on Monday, I said that Imam Muslim, when he was given a choice, like when Muhammad ibn Yahya al-Burdi, one of the shuyukh, he gave him a choice saying that if you want to stay with me, you can't stay with Bukhari, and Imam Muslim went with Bukhari, yes? You guys remember that? And I said Imam Muslim, he still narrated on the Shaykh. No, he did. But I'm saying, why is that a mistake? That what I mentioned.
Not him.
Because Imam Muslim finished his Sahih before he met Imam Bukhari. It was the opposite. Imam Bukhari narrated on both. Even though Muhammad ibn Yahya al-Bukhari, he criticized Imam Bukhari. Again, it's just a show. It was just meant to be a show of justice. Yes?
To the time and the question is that the person that not getting along well or some, you know that the person not getting along well, but still you have to be justice and be kind and forgiveness even though you want to be space and a distance.
So you, like I said, there are levels to this, all of this, right? Do I, here, let me, how do I put this tactfully? Do I need to be, if I want to be kind and forgiving, does it have to be with everyone? No. I don't mean to say that in a mean way, but I have a choice of who I want to be kind and forgiving with and who I want to just give the rights. Right? These are all voluntary relationships. The person who's overwhelmingly kind and forgiving, he would still be a siddiq, even though there might be one or two people who he just gives the rights. And if the overwhelming number of people I'm good, I'm just giving the rights, and some of them I'm kind and forgiving, I would still be here. So there's a spectrum that's there. I don't have to be kind and forgiving. No. If that's the question, no, I don't. But should I try to be kind and forgiving? Yes. And does kind and forgiving mean that I let other people take my rights? No, it doesn't. Because we said that putting myself in a position of weakness is what? Like I'm voluntarily putting myself in a position of weakness. This is what? What is the ruling? Is it it's haram? It's not Yajuz. I will be sinful. If I'm knowingly putting myself in a position of weakness. لا ضرر ولا ضرار كنا مستضعفين في الأرض. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala statement that ما كان حالكم كنا مستضعفين في الأرض. That what was your condition? You were weak in the land, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put them. So we are not allowed to oppress, nor are we allowed to put ourselves again voluntarily in positions where we can do oppress. Anything else? Alright, I'll see you guys next. I'll see you guys. For those of you who come on Monday, I'll see you on Monday, and the rest of you I'll see on Monday.
What's that by your foot? Behind your leg.
Yeah, but the clock starts at 6:30. Like separate. Like,
أشهد